All right, I'm back again, kind of a rapid fire segment of videos here. And I said I lied. Okay, I said that I was not going to talk more about the double lift specifically. I did a quick video on it. I've never really covered it before. And then I followed that up with another video where I talked about alternatives and why I don't use the move very much. But in the process of doing that, I kind of, I don't know, investigated a couple things. I looked a few things up online based on some comments and just experimented a little bit. And I don't think that this really changes the way I use the move or will use the move, but I might as well share it with you and you can just kind of examine it. And there's a high likelihood, because so many people have worked on this, that it's going to look a lot like things that you may already know, but as happens all the time. But I'm going to just kind of share with you just a quick perspective on that issue about the most natural way to turn over a card. One person brought up in the comment section, I think it was Tom Parkin, talked about how whenever you see someone do the lift, particularly whenever they go to grab the edges of the card at the side, whenever they pinch the long edges, this immediately is indicating some kind of false count is going to happen, or a double, so where multiple cards are going to be accounted for as one. So this motion right here, and I argue that this, coupled with the idea of the book turnover, even if it's done very fluidly, very freely, very cleanly, even with a push off, that is not really the most natural way to turn over cards. And I reasoned, just theoretically, that if you asked someone to turn over cards, they would do it as if they were dealing to the table. They would either push off and turn at the wrist this way, or they would push off with the hand already rotated up and turn this way. That they would turn mostly end for end as if dealing to the table, but they would just do it on the top. Now, the one thing I'll add to that is it may not involve a push off, but it may involve a slide off. Someone may try to reach out and slide the card off and turn it over. And that this is probably the most likely natural way that someone would just turn over a card. There may be other variations, but I argue that this is a very magician-like concept. This is something that magicians invented. The idea there is that if I'm going to turn over two cards, and if I slide it off, and I just very delicately just, turn it over like that, it must be only one card, right? That's the idea, and that's what we strive for when doing the turnover, is just kind of brushing it right over. But it is a major tell, right? We all know when we see that there's a false count of some kind that's happening, right? Especially if it's in a packet trick situation. You know that there's some kind of falsification and handling of multiple cards as one, whether it be some kind of false count or a double turnover or lift, or some kind of acquisition of more than one card, right? Now, another person on the video mentioned their more likely turnovers that they like to do, and they talked about the Jerks blog, and they've got a double lift turnover that they conceived of based on a lot of what I'm talking about. I was unfamiliar with this. I had to go look it up, and I found it. And it's funny because what they did was they did a video of a bunch of people that were just asked to turn one card over, non-magician people, just asked to take, here's a deck of cards, turn over the top card, and to kind of categorize the most common ways that people do this. Lo and behold, the vast majority were this. Just like I said, right? Either push off and turn at the wrist, or slide off and turn at the wrist, one way or the other. Some people would go this way. They would slide off the back and turn over. Maybe, one or two people went off that way and turned over that way. But there was never really anybody that did this. This was not a normal kind of intuitive thing, right? They would deal with it as if they were dealing the card and turning it over to the table on the top of the deck. And the jerks reason that, well, your double should look more like that. Again, it's really what I was saying, that if you're really going to be a consistent purist, again, which most purists are not consistent. I find that not just in magic, but in a lot of things, that you have to kind of get rid of this idea and go back to the more caveman concept of turning over a card, right? Which is very free, and very basic, very simple. Off, turn at the wrist, and turn it over. Now, I reasoned in that same video then, following my track here, that you could do this other turnover that gets a lot of flack because it looks very much like a push off and turn at the wrist. It has this function of squaring against the palm and rotating. But if you remove that part of it in the presentation at the end, you could just take the card and then turn it over and then set it into the hand. That would be something that you could do. And you could repeat it again, just pushing off, grabbing the second corner, small brief there that is not seen, particularly if you necktie a little bit, with the second finger rather, and then do a little bit of that rotation so on the palm so that you have square. But once you get it over, you can just set it down. And I'm maintaining square with my fingers here in this corner. These cannot buckle apart. They can't slide apart because I have them there. And then I set it down on the deck and I square it against the fingers in the front and just place it. And that this actually, contrary to much of the criticism of that type of double, looks more like the natural way of dealing stud to the table or dealing by rotating at the wrist to the table. I took this one step further and thought that, well, if you do the book turnover, which I'm happy to do in spite of the fact that it's not absolutely natural, if you do the book turnover, you have a little bit more control. So I kind of split the difference between the two. So if you push off and grab the second corner, again, I can see this very clearly, and you can see it very clearly. I've given you a pretty good high angle. A little bit of necktie, this doesn't matter anymore though, right? But if I reached out with the first finger and I pulled back into square, then I could gain access to the long edge with these other fingers. I have it square. Now I can pick up, I've done essentially pushover where I pick up the edge and then I can turn it over like a book without any kind of get ready, right? I can just push off and I can grab it here with the first finger, grab with the other fingers at the side, and then do the sweep and then book turn. So that's where I left it, right? And that is one that I've been doing for a couple of years. I've been doing that kind of thing in the very rare instance that I ever bother doing a turnover where I want to do a push off without a get ready. The truth of the matter is my get ready or my turnover is usually a get ready where I get separation on a second card, I set it on there, and either I will pinch it directly at the ends, this thing I'm criticizing is the thing I do, right? I will turn it over like that, or I will grab it front to back and I will kick it out and turn it over and set it down, right? And maintain my break. So I have control and I can ensure that I'll get it right. Let's go back to this jerks thing real quick. Someone clued me in and they suggested, I'm probably going to call this wrong. I'm not looking at the comments, so I can't remember. But maybe the thing that I attributed to Illusionists and Blaine, didn't know the origins of it, might have been a Derek Dingle thing. I don't know, but that was, I think that's what the comment was. I try to get some proper attribution in there. If we go back to that and accompany that with the concepts that the Jerks was talking about, now the Jerks came up with their own presentation, which was to essentially do this, to just grab from the back, sweep back, and turn over. You give complete coverage on the edge, and it's really impossible to see how many cards are there. And in the example, they actually turned over like 9 cards. And you couldn't see it. You just couldn't see it. Now, it's very, again, caveman. It's very clunky, like people would do, but it does follow that rationale that it doesn't look like double lift turnover technique. It looks like real people doing real things with cards, right? Borrowing some of that, I was thinking about this just in the last, 24 hours here, that if you do this push off and I reach out and grab the second corner as my normal, right? And I square up, and rather than grabbing down here to pick up at the edges to turn it over, I just keep it square. I grab the corner and then merely turn it over just like the Jerks is suggesting. So you're sweeping the front up and over and then setting down. This is really a lot like what people do, right? If you ask someone to turn over a card, that's probably what they're going to do. It's going to look something much more like that. They deal off as if to deal to the table, and they just turn it over. So this is the opposite of the, I'm going to say the dingle thing, where you would rotate the opposite way, right? Going under this way, or that modification I made where you grab with the first finger and then rotate down. The one problem with this is that you are sweeping the double edge against the spectator's view and then having to tuck it in. But if you just go the other way, which is the Jerks kind of philosophy here, even though this edge is open, it disappears immediately and you're able to push into square. So without any kind of get ready, just reaching out, grabbing the second, these are starting to stick. Let me get another spot. Reaching out and getting the second corner with the first index, right? Pulling back and then bringing the front edge up. So I get square with these fingers and the thumb, and then I sweep up and set down. It's actually a pretty natural looking thing. It's a push off, no get ready. I'm grabbing as if literally to deal the card, and I'm turning it over at the wrist like a person would do. Really easy, really stupid easy. And again, just keeping in mind that you can have a pretty big brief if you necktie a little bit, right? But really stupid easy, a lot of control. I'm probably going to play around with this a little bit more. Again, I don't use them. I'm not going to just start inserting double lifts into my magic. I'm just going to keep doing the things I do as well as I do them. But I think it's something I may experiment with, and I'm just sharing it with you. Is there a chance that there's double lifts out there that look exactly like what I'm talking about, and I'm reinventing the wheel? I would imagine that there's somebody has already done something like this. But it is a simple kind of. I know a lot of people talk about learning to do a push-off double, and they say, well, you just have to learn to push off 2 cards. I don't think that's true. I think that kind of going to the Erdnase second deal, where you have a brief, a margin, as it's explained in the book, and you make contact with the second card, that you can do a second in this way, right? You push off and you grab the margin above to deal. You can make contact underneath and then make contact pinching at the top to deal. Very much in the same way, there's nothing wrong with having a brief that you can see that they don't have an angle on. And the best way to do that without pulling back and getting a big prep on it is to just push off a spread and reach out and grab the second corner. Very, very simple, right? Grab the second corner with the first finger, pull it back into square, again against that palm, grab the corner with the other fingers, and then pull it up and turn over and then set it immediately down into the hand. You actually can make contact with the deck, and this will square it. And I'm squaring against the deck. I've got my thumb over here, and I'm pushing into the fingers. Really, really secure as I was experimenting with it. Really, really safe and secure, and it looks pretty. It looks almost dead on natural for how you would turn over a card. So anyway, just sharing that idea with you. Don't know that it is, life-changing or anything, but I didn't want to hold it back. I was experimenting, and I kind of noticed that this was pretty secure and very, very easy to do. So something for you to play around with, put on a video camera, watch yourself in the playback, and experiment with that and see if it's something you like or not. Discard it if you don't. So anyway, good luck with that. Happy magicking.